Good morning. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP Bangladesh. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP Bangladesh. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us till the end. Honorable Knowledge Seeker, today I am your host for the morning. My name is Badhun Dash. I am from Bangladesh. Dear Knowledge Seeker, I am proud to associate with IGP as a global member. IGP is a social and ISO certified international training institute. In 3 years, we already served 3 million plus knowledge seekers from 100 plus countries. IGP is internationally recognized and globally accredited. We are connected to more than 250 plus professions and 4,500 plus organizations. Institute of Global Professional IGP is a training faculty for skill development which was founded in 2020 and is generating competent candidates to meet demand in the global labor market by providing professional qualifications. The Institute of Global Professional is an education institute that provides social work globally recognized and reputable. We serve student and community resource providing holistic social work and education. We believe that it's not effective to increase one skill just by acquiring formal education. So we provide effective training and consultation to generate professional generation all over the world. We distribute our services locally, nationally, and internationally to students, job seeker, job holder, and also for learner, the respective campus location and distance learning platform. We are an occupational and dependable institute. IGP is one of the famous online institutes from all over the world. Our vision is education is not a business product, it's a part of our human rights. Based on our vision, we are trying to reach all corners of the world for free webinars, seminar courses, our tools, competition mentoring, and counseling, etc. On the other side, we also try to offer more than 100 premium services for free, like create own portfolio website, resume builder, cover letter, motivation letter, and wall knowledge platform for gathering general knowledge which can upgrade all day. Kids learning game website, free course, converse sites, and many, many more. We help to empower you to learn to meet their expectation and live and become highly skilled people. We implement several training program, webinar and offline online courses for youth learner by professional trainer, speaker, and coaches. Our sessions are conducted by globally renowned professionals to develop all kind of youth and to promote the education of their abilities and personalities. To ensure excellent and in-depth instruction, we arrange with qualified trainer, speaker, and instructor. We extended free services to more than 3 million knowledge seekers in last 3 years. We have affiliation with universities and organizations in 70 different countries. Virtual more signing with many colleges and organizations has been accomplished. We are working to create a legendary generation of future scholars and citizens who will be accountable. We are constantly prepared to assist all knowledge seekers with valuable service. Spreading knowledge is crucial for the Institute of Global Professionals. We believe that knowledge is love and light and vision. So we try to understand the needs of today's generation and we serve them with good research and practice methods. We must have a genuine concern for the learner we represent. More diversity, growth, and innovation are required to lead a station with professionalism, passion, and integrity. IGP members are committed to offering effective best quality service and continuous improvement so that individuals who seek information can improve their skill level and value. Before we move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Before I move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Moving to the next, with your continuous support, we already completed 1,416 webinars successfully. Wow. Moving to the next, with your continuous support, we already completed 1,416 webinars successfully. Wow. At present, we are going to start our 1417 program, which name is Research Methodology. And today our speaker's name is Professor Dr. Pratik Rajan Mungekar. He is from India. Before I hand over the stage to our speaker, sir, wants to share a very little bit about him. Scientist, professor, counselor, global educator, published author, and an international speaker. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. Thank you so much, Institute of Global Professionals, for inviting me here to express my thoughts on very interesting topic. Today's topic is research methodology. Shall we start?
Yes, sir. Sir, when you want to move, change, when you want to
Yes,
change the slide, please tell
yes,
me next
yes,
slide. I
yes.
will change the slide.
Okay, okay, no issue.
Okay, sir.
First slide, please. So this is introduction. In a thesis, dissertation, academic journal article, or other formal pieces of research, there are often details of how the researcher approach the study and the methods and techniques they use. If you are designing a research study, then it is helpful to understand what research methodology is and the selection of techniques and tools available to you. So, in this lecture, we explore what research methodology is, the types of research methodologies, and the techniques and tools commonly used to collect and analysis data. Next slide, please. So my first question is, what is research methodology? Research methodology simply refers to the practical how of any given piece of research. More specifically, it's about how a researcher systematically designs a study to ensure valid and reliable results that address the research aims and objectives. For example, how did the researcher go about deciding what data to collect and what data to ignore? Who to collect it from? In research, this is called sampling design. How to collect it? This is called data collection methods. And how to analyze it? This is called data analysis methods. So, as research methodology is the plan and structure of investigation of an aim or problem on which research is relying, so different techniques are applied to get the answers of desired question. Methodology. Methodology is the theory of how research should be undertaken. And explaining what is research methodology, including the theoretical and philosophical assumptions upon which research is based and the implications of these for the method or methods adopted. So, according to the Kaplan's discussion on this concept, the conduct of inquiry, he distinguishes several senses of methodology. First, the technique, the specific procedures used in a given science. Second, honorifics, a ritual invocation attesting to concern with meeting standards of scientific acceptability. Third, epistemology, involving the most basic philosophical questions about the pursuit of truth. So, this is about methodology. Now, research methodology. Research methodology is the overall process. Research methodology is the overall process guiding the entire research project. Another way to look to methodology is to call it the primary evidence generation mechanism. It is also an activity which is time consuming, so I am using dissimilar proficiencies. My main purpose of the research is to focus on the information technology and its effects at the time of its introduction on the workplaces. I'm also analyzing the difference among the condition of the workplace before and after the introduction of IT. I'm also researching on the technologies such as computers, digital cameras, automated giants, etc., which are used in the workplace. Now, uh, next slide, please. No, the previous one. Why is research methodology? This thing. Why is research methodology important? Previous slide, please. Yes. So, why is a research methodology important? A research methodology gives research legitimacy and provides scientifically sound findings. It also provides a detailed plan that helps to keep researchers on track, making the process smooth, effective, and manageable. A researcher's methodology allows the reader to understand the approach and methods used to conclusions. Now, in the same slide, there are some research philosophies also. See, all research is based on assumptions about how the world is perceived and how we can best come to understand it. And these assumptions are established on research philosophies. So these assumptions will underpin the research strategy and the methods choose as a part of that strategy. So according to Saunders, one of the philosophers, research philosophy is overarching term relating to the development of knowledge and the nature of that knowledge in relation to research. Then Johnson and Clark, these were philosophers, argues that the vital issue is not so much whether the research should be philosophically informed, but it is how well we are able to reflect upon our philosophical choices. So, my research will reflect two research philosophies, which are ontology and epistemology. So these assumptions consist of a stance towards the nature of really ontology and how the researchers knows what she or he knows, which is epistemology. Now first I will explain ontology. Now see, this is the philosophy which is related to the nature of reality and its characteristics. This philosophy raises the assumptions researchers have about the way the world operates and the commitment held to particular views. So, ontology has two aspects, objectivism and subjectivism, which will both have their devotees among business and management researchers. Now, see, first, objectivism, an ontological position that asserts that entities are created, um, uh, what I can say, an ontological position that asserts that social entities exist in a reality external to and independent of social actors concerned with their existence. This is objectivism. Subjectivism is what? An ontological position that asserts that entities are created from the perceptions and consequent actions of those social actors responsible for their creation. So, an extreme form, it may hold that the nature and existence of every object depends solely on someone's subjective awareness of it. So, subjectivism is a philosophical tenet that accords primary to subjective experience as fundamental of all measure and law. So, in an extreme form, it may hold that the nature and existence of every object depend solely on someone's subjective awareness of it. Now, next comes epistemology. Please don't change the slide, okay? I'll tell you when to change. Next concept is epistemology. See, epistemology is concerned with the study of knowledge and what we accept as being valid knowledge. So, the relationship between the researcher and that which is being researched is involved in this philosophy. The longer researchers stay in the field or get to know the participants, the more they know what they know from first hand information. So, epistemology is further categorized into three subcategories: positivism, realism, and interpretivism. Now, see what is that? First, positivism. As my research reflects the philosophy of positivism, in which I will adopt the philosophical stance of the natural scientist. Positivism is epistemological position that advocates working with an observation social reality. So the emphasis is on highly structured methodology to facilitate replication, and the end product can be law-like generations similar to those produced by the physical and natural scientists. So this is about positivism. Now, realism. See, realism is another philosophical position which relates to scientific inquiry. It is the epistemological position that objects exist independently of our knowledge of their existence. So the philosophy of realism is that there is a reality quite independent of the human mind. So realism is somewhat similar to positivism in that it assumes a scientific approach development of knowledge. So there are two forms of realism: direct realism and critical realism. See, direct realism is the epistemological position that what we see is what we get, and what we experience through our senses portrays the world accurately. Another form is critical realism, which is also the epistemological position that what we experience are sensations. What we experience are sensations, the images of the real world, not the things directly. This is critical realism. Now, interpretism. See, interpretism, it advocates the necessity to understand difference between humans in their role as social actors. So the emphasis of this philosophical research is on the people rather than objects such as trucks and computers, etc. For example. So the heritage of this strand of interpretism comes from two intellectual traditions: phenomenology and symbolic interactionism. So phenomenology refers to the way in which human make sense of the world around, whereas in symbolic interactionism, we are in a continual process of interpreting the social world around us. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so, having a sound research methodology in place provides the following benefits. See, first, other researchers who want to replicate the research have enough information to do so. Researchers who receive criticism can refer to the methodology and explain their approach. Then, it can help provide researchers with a specific plan to follow throughout their research. Next benefit, the methodology design process helps researchers select the correct methods for the objectives. And last one, it allows researchers to document what they intend to achieve with the research from the outset. Now, in this slide, I'm going to explain more about research approach also. See, research approach refers to the approach or the methodology that has been adopted to conduct the research. It basically involves the selection of research questions, the conceptual framework that has to be adopted, the selection of appropriate research method such as primary research, secondary research, etc. And research can be distinguished as belonging to one of two models: a deductive, which is, or what you can say in common language, top down approach, or an inductive, which is bottom up approach. So deductive approach is one in which a theory and hypothesis are formulated, and then a research strategy is planned to test these hypotheses. Whereas in inductive approach, data is gathered and the theory is developed as an outcome of the data analysis. So my research will be carried out through the inductive approach, in which I will collect data from different resources and develops theory as a result of data analysis. An inductive approach is radically different from the deductive type. I have chosen the inductive approach because it does not have the same strength of relationship between reasons and conclusions. So to induce something is to draw a conclusion from one or more particular facts or pieces of evidence. The conclusion explains the fact support the conclusion. So, um, before explaining types of research methodology, I'm gonna explain research strategy in detail. See, my research is explanatory, in which I am examining the relationship between variables, which are information technology, workplace, and the people. So, in order to get a clearer view of the relationship, I will collect the qualitative data to explain the research, that how the information technology has impacted the workplace. My research strategy for this work is grounded theory. So, research strategy. See, grounded theory is often thought of as a best example of the inductive approach developing and building method. So, grounded theory is according to Golding. Golding is a philosopher, particularly helpful for research. This theory particularly helpful for research to predict and explain behavior. The emphasis being upon developing and building theory. So, grounded theory is a research strategy in which theory is developed from data generated by a series of observation or interviews, principally involving an inductive approach. So, according to Stern, grounded theory is one of the interpretative methods that share the common philosophy of phenomenology, that is, methods that are used to describe the world of the person or person under study. So, a key idea is that this theory development does not come off the shelf, but rather is generated or grounded in data from participants who have experienced the process. The roots of grounded theory can be traced back to a moment known as symbolic interactionism, whose origins lie in the work of Charles Cooley and George Herbert Mead. So, the concern of these scholars was to avoid the polarities of psychologism and sociology. So, grounded theory was originally developed in the 1960s by two American sociology scholars, focusing largely on the health nursing field. So, Barney Glasser and Stratus, and started to become well known with the publishing of their book, and then comes the discovery of grounded theory. So, in grounded theory, data collection starts without the formation of an initial theoretical framework. So, theory is developed from data generated by a series of observations. These data led to the generation of predictions, which are then tested in further observations that may confirm or otherwise the predictions. So, methodology uses a systematic set of procedures to develop an inductively derived grounded theory about a phenomena. The findings of the research constitute a theoretical formation of the reality under investigation, rather than consisting of set of numbers or group of loosely related themes. Now, objectives of grounded theory. See, essentially, the objective in grounded theory is to build mid-range theory. So the emphasis on building effective and complex theory grounded in data at various levels of generality characterizes its most important purpose. So, grounded theory is predicted on the idea that social science theory can be built from the data systematically obtained in a social setting. So, theory emerges from very deep and contemplative analysis of data obtained in the field rather than from a prior assumptions developed before the research begins. So, grounded theory researchers aim to develop theories that enable explanation of behavior, are applicable in practice, and provide hypotheses that can be verified. Two features of grounded theory that help set it apart from other qualitative methods. First feature, it is not limited to description of the phenomena but seeks to develop theoretical concepts. And second feature, it is not bound to a particular unit of analysis, time, or place. So this allows researchers to develop a grounded theory and apply and test it in areas outside the original study. So the grounded theory perspective of what constitutes a theory is defined by Stratus and Corbin as a set. Grounded theory is what? A set of well-developed concepts related through statements of relationship, which together constitute an integrated framework that can be used to explain or predict phenomena. So theory is constructed from conceptual categories and their properties. So now next slide, please. The types of research methodology. That slide. I think slide number 6. Yes, yes. Okay. So types of research methodology. See, when designing a research methodology, a researcher has several decisions to make. So one of the most important is what data methodology to use: qualitative, quantitative, or a combination of the two. No matter the type of research, the data gathered will be as numbers of descriptions, and researcher can choose to focus on collecting words, numbers, or both. So, before I explain the qualitative, quantitative, and the combination, I would take pleasure to explain uh, the research choice method before we start the qualitative and quantitative. See, the research choice method, the way in which a researcher chooses to combine the qualitative and quantitative techniques and procedures is said to be research choice. So, research choice can also be said as research design. So, research choice is categorized in two types: mono and multiple method. See, monotype method is that in which we use single data collection technique and corresponding analysis procedures, whereas multiple method is that in which more than one type of data collection technique and analysis procedures are used. So in business research, mostly multiple methods is used for the combination of quantitative and qualitative techniques and procedures as well as for primary and secondary data. Multiple methods are further categorized into multi-methods and mixed methods. So multi-method is a term refers to those mixtures where associated analysis techniques use more than one data collection technique. But this method is limited within either a qualitative or quantitative world's view. So my business research will reflect multi-method qualitative research studies in which I will collect my data while using qualitative technique, which is interviews. As my data is qualitative, so I will analysis by using qualitative procedures. So in the same concept, there are some more concepts which are associated with this research choice method. So first is time horizon. See, the time horizon, what is that? There are generally two time horizons for the research strategy. The one is cross-sectional, in which the study of particular phenomena is conducted at particular time period, and the other is longitudinal studies, which is, as stated by Saunders, a series of snapshots, and also said to be a diary that involves repeated observations of the same items over long period of time, often many decades. So for my research project, the limited time period is provided, and according to specific time period, I will consider cross-sectional studies in which I will take a snapshot of information technology in the workplace. Then comes, in the same concept, data collection procedures. See, so data collection procedures, I will use different categories of procedures for my research. To achieve the research aim, a mixed method qualitative approach will be adopted. So primary data, see, the primary research is that when source is an original document containing first information about the topic. For example, diaries, interviews, letters, original works of art, photographs, works of literature. So I will be collecting my primary data by interviewing with different people working in different places. So interview is the method of collecting information through face-to-face contact with the individuals. So further, I would like to explain interviewing. What is interviewing? See, I will collect my primary data by interviewing personals from different people working in different workplaces such as banks, hospitals, offices, educational sectors, retail businesses, industries, etc. So, an interview is a powerful discussion between two or more people. The use of interviews can help to gather valid and reliable data that are relevant to research questions and objectives. So, interviews are associated with the positivist and phenomenological methods, which I explained already. So, there are other methods of collecting data in which selected participants are asked questions in order to find out what they do, think, or feel. So interviews make it easy to compare answer and maybe face to face, voice to voice, screen to screen, conducted with individuals or a group of individuals. So interviews may be highly formalized and structured, or they may be informal and unstructured. So in between there are intermediate positions. One typology that is commonly used is thus related to the level of formality and structure, whereby interviews may be categorized as one of structured interviews, semi-structured interviews, unstructured, or in-depth interviews. So I will conduct semi-structured interviews in which I will have a list of all the questions to be covered during interview. So semi-structured interviews are non-standardized and are often referred to as qualitative research interviews. So although the response may be vary from interview to interview, so I may also omit or add some questions according to the flow of conversation. So the major this method is generally used. So the major advantage of this strategy is that with a more natural discussion, the great detail and variety can be provided by respondents. So I will consider the individuals from any firms, organizations, governmental or non-profit also, banks and other places which are located in some place. So I will conduct face-to-face interviews from individuals and take the notes of the responses which are given by respondents. And in these interviews, I will ask them that what latest technology they are using in their workplace and what are the benefits or drawbacks of technological advancement. So how these technologies are making the workplace better from the previous time. In the next concept, secondary data is also important. So see, in secondary research is that what is secondary research basically first? So secondary research is that when someone else has collected the data, and the researchers interprets and analyzes primary sources, secondary data included both draw and publish summaries. So secondary data include both qualitative and quantitative data, and they are used principally in both descriptive and explanatory research. When secondary data is used, it is easy to build a research on the past collected information of business knowledge which is gathered by others' experiences. So the advantage of using secondary data is that it can be obtained rapidly and is less expensive as compared to collect primary data. So in contrast, some disadvantages of secondary data is that they were not designed specifically to meet the researcher's needs and user has no control over their accuracy. They may also be inaccurate. So different researchers have generated a variety of classifications for the secondary data. So this classification do not, however, capture the full variety of data. So the three main subcategories, subgroups are created for secondary data, which are documentary data, survey-based data, and those compiled from multiple sources. So the secondary data which I'm collecting in my research is compiled from multiple sources. The most important characteristics of secondary sources is that they offer an interpretation of information gathered from primary sources, for example, dissertations, indexes, abstracts, bibliographies, journal articles, books, newspapers, internet, etc. Now, uh, coming back to the qualitative method. Now I will explain qualitative, quantitative, and the combination. So, qualitative. See, the qualitative research method involves collecting and analyzing written or spoken words and textual data. It may also focus on body language or visual elements and help to create a detailed description of a researcher's observations. So, researchers usually gather qualitative data through interviews, observation, and focus groups using a very carefully chosen participants. So, this research methodology is subjective and more time consuming than using quantitative data. So, researchers often use a qualitative methodology when the aims and objectives of the research are exploratory. For example, when they perform research to understand human perceptions regarding an event, person, or product. Next slide, please. Next is quantitative. So, researchers in quantitative researchers usually use quantitative methodology when the objective of the research is to confirm something. It focuses on collecting, testing, and measuring numerical data, usually from a large sample of participants. So they then analyze the data using statistical analysis and comparisons. So popular methods used to gather quantitative data are surveys, then questionnaires, tests, databases, organizational records. So this research methodology is objective and is often quicker as researchers use software programs when analyzing the data. An example of how researchers could use a quantitative methodology is to measure the relationship between two variables or test a set of hypotheses. Next slide, please. This mixed method. This I have already explained, choice method, but I'll summarize this. So this contemporary research methodology combines quantitative and qualitative approaches to provide additional perspectives, create a richer picture, and present multiple findings. So the quantitative methodology provides definitive facts and figures, while the qualitative provides a human aspect. So this methodology can produce interesting results as it presents exact data while also being exploratory. Next slide, please. Yes, types of sampling design in research methodology. See, when creating a sample design, a researcher decides from who or what they will collect data. They also choose the techniques and procedures they will use to select items or individuals for the sample. So there are several types of sample design that fall into two main categories. Next slide, please. First is probability sampling. Okay, now see, what is this probability sampling? This sampling method uses a random sample from the pool of people or items you are interested in, called the population, and is random or chance sampling. So every person or item in the population has an equal chance of being selected, and using this method, this method is the best way to get a truly representative sample, and researchers can generalize the study's results to the entire population. Next process is next method. Next slide, please. Is non-probability sampling. See, the non-probability sampling is not random, as the researchers deliberately selects people or items for the sample. So researchers also refer to this method as deliberate sampling, judgment sampling, or purposive sampling. So every person or item in the population does not have an equal chance of being selected, and the results are typically not generalizable to the entire population. Next slide, please. Then comes common data collection methods. See, once a researcher has finalized their population sample, they need to decide how to collect data. So there are several options for data collection, and the best research method to use will depend on the research topic, methodology, type of data, and the population sample. Next slide, please. See, common data collection methods. As I explained interview technique in detail, now I explain all these methods in a brief manner. So although there are many ways to collect data, people often broadly group them in these ways. Interviews. So researchers can carry out interviews in a structured, semi-structured, or unstructured format, depending on how formal the question are. Then surveys. Surveys can be online or in person and have either free answers, essay style question, or close multiple choice type questions, etc. So these are the types of surveys which you can conduct. So depending on the data required, a survey could also use a mixture. Then comes focus groups. So focus groups have interviewees give their thoughts, opinions, perspective, and perceptions on specific topics. A moderator usually leads the group to help guide the discussion and ensure everyone speaks. Then comes observations. So direct observations involves observing the spontaneous behavior of participants without interference from the researcher, while participant observation is more structured and the researcher interacts with the participants. And last one is documents and records. So researchers collect data such as published reports and official documents of international bodies, government agencies, or private institutes, and internal records such as employees, payroll, raw material quantities, and cash receipts. Next slide. Common data analysis methods, qualitative and quantitative. So researchers use different data analysis methods depending on whether the data is qualitative, quantitative. For example, qualitative data analysis, uh, qualitative data is usually in spoken or written information, such as interview transcripts, video and audio recordings, notes, images, and text documents. So, qualitative data analysis involves identifying common patterns in participants' responses and critically analyzing them to achieve research aims and objectives. So, the most commonly used qualitative data analysis methods are: first is content analysis. So this is one of the most common method used to analyze documented information and is usually used to analyze interviewees' responses. Then comes narrative analysis. So researchers use this method to analyze content from several sources, including interviews, observations, and surveys. It focuses on using people's stories and experiences to answer research questions. Then comes discourse analysis. So this method analyzes spoken or written language in its social context and aims to understand how people use language in day-to-day situation. And next is grounded theory, which I explain in much more detail. So this method uses qualitative data to discover or construct a theory explaining why something happened, and it uses a comparative analysis of data from similar cases in different settings to derive explanations. Next slide, please. Next is quantitative data analysis. Now see, quantitative data analysis involves turning numbers into meaningful data by applying rational and critical thinking. So most researchers use analytical software to assist with quantitative data analysis. So the first stage is analyzing quantitative data is validating, editing, and coding the data. Once completed, the data is ready for analysis. So the most commonly used quantitative data analysis method are descriptive analysis. Now, this method uses descriptive statistics like mean, median, mode, percentage, frequency, and range to find patterns. Then next is inferential analysis. So inferential analysis method shows the relationships between multiple variables using correlation, regression, and variable analysis. Next method. Okay. Next slide, please. Now see, factors to consider when choosing a research methodology. So here are some factors to consider when choosing a research methodology. The research objective, first factor. Consider the research project objective. When researchers know what information they require at the end of the project to meet their objectives, it helps them select the correct methodology and research method. Then significance of statistics. Another factor to consider is whether you require concise data driven research results and statistical answers, or whether the research questions require an understanding of results, perceptions, opinions, and motivations. Then comes nature of the research. If the aims and objectives are exploratory, the research will probably require qualitative data collection methods. However, if the aims and objectives are to measure or test something, the research will require a quantitative data collection method. Then comes sample size. How big does the sample need to be to answer the research questions and meet the objectives? So the sample size can determine your data gathering methods, such as whether to use in-person interviews or similar samples or online surveys for larger ones. Then comes time available. If there are time constraints, consider techniques like random or convenience sampling and tools that allow for data collection in few days. So if there is more time available for data collection, in-person interviews and observations are possible. Then now I would like to explain before this how to choose best research methodology for your study. I would take pleasure to explain a very important topic, which is research ethics. So ethics are moral principles, norms, or standards or behaviors that guide moral choices about behaviors and relationships with others. So in business research, ethical issues come to the fore whenever a conflict arises between the desire to conduct research that meets the highest quality standards or the request of the sponsor on the one board and the societal values like say privacy, freedom, and honesty on the other. So ethics is the study of the right behavior and address the questions of how to conduct research in a moral and responsible way. So ethics is also said to be the appropriateness of the researcher's behavior in relation to the rights of those who become the subject of a research project or who are affected by it. So in most research situations, three parties are involved: the researcher, the sponsoring client, and the respondent. So within, for example, business and management research, there are two dominant philosophical standpoints. One is uh, deontology, and second is teleology. So, deontological view argues that the ends served by research can never justify the use of research which is unethical. In contrast, the teleological view argues that the ends served by your research justify the means. Consequently, the benefits of your research findings would be weighed against the cost of acting unethically. So, this approach has an added complication, as you also need to consider whether the benefits of the research are morally just. So, when ethics are discussed in research design, the first priority is to protect the right of the participants, respondents, or subject, whether data are gathered in an experiment, interviews, observation, or survey. So the respondent has many rights to be safeguarded. In general, the research must be designed so a respondent does not suffer physical harm, discomfort, pain, embarrassment, or loss of privacy. To safeguard these things, I will follow three guidelines. First, I will explain the benefits of the study. Then, I will explain the participants' rights and protection. And in the last, I will obtain secure, informed consent. So, now, my slide next concept is how to choose best research methodology for your study. Come to the this slide: how to choose best research methodology for your study. Slide number 18. How to choose best research methodology for your study. Hello. Please go to slide number 18. You are going so fast. Yes, thank you. How to choose best research methodology for your study. See, successful research conduction requires proper planning and execution. While there are multiple reasons and aspects behind a successful research completion, choice of best research methodology is one of the most difficult and confusing decisions, since your research will dictate the kinds of approaches you follow, and it is crucial to choose research methodology to underpin your work and methods you used in order to collect data. So the correct choice of methodology in research allows you to collect required information and accomplish the final goals of the study. So, as you have probably picked up by now, your research aims and objectives have a major influence on the research methodology. So, the starting point for developing your research methodology is to take step back and look at the big picture of your research before you make methodology decisions. So, the first question you need to ask yourself is whether your research is exploratory or confirmatory in nature. So, if your research aims and objectives are primarily exploratory in nature, your research will likely to be qualitative, and therefore you might consider qualitative data collection methods, example interviews and analysis methods, uh, or example qualitative content analysis. So conversely, if your research aims and objectives are looking to measure or test something, that is they are confirmatory, then your research will quite likely be quantitative in nature, and you might consider quantitative data collection methods, example surveys and analysis, statistical analysis. Then designing your research and working out your methodology is a large topic, which which already I have explained. But now I would like to explain the importance of choosing best research methodology. Next slide, please. The importance of choosing best research methodology. See, the best research methodology is determined before research conduction. So, correct choice of research methodology helps in determining the success and overall quality of your research study and its documentation. Furthermore, becoming familiar with the research methodology used by an area of study allows you to understand it more effectively. Next slide, please. What are the steps to follow while choosing the best research methodology? So, step number one. Next slide, please. Slide number 20. What are the steps to follow while choosing the best research methodology? Step number one, define the goals, objectives, and research questions. See, before worrying about the before worrying about the inferences, which is conclusion, it is important to draw a path toward conclusive results. Therefore, it is essential to clearly understand what you want to research before deciding upon how to research. Most importantly, determine the variables that need to be studied in order to get an answer to the research question. Sticking to variables will lead you to the final result. This is step number one, define the goals, objectives, and research question. Now, step number two, refer pertinent research and effectively use methodology. So, as there are immeasurable ways of conducting research, all may not be mean for your study. Furthermore, determining the best research methodology can be difficult if you are not aware of the approaches undertaken by other researchers from your field. So, therefore, reading pertinent literature in your research area and then evaluating its methodology based on the feasibility and limitations is essential. Next slide, please. Okay, step number three. Step number three is structuring the plan and finding resources to conduct research. While the research area may be same, the method of data collection may not be. So some may be time consuming, some may be found on the internet, others might need field study or might be expensive. Therefore, it is essential to base your decision after giving a thought to these limitations of data collection as well. Step number four, write the research methodology in detail, and review it. So after selecting a particular approach to conduct your research, you must make a note of all activities. It must include the approximate time and resources each step might take. This helps in understanding the approach that your research would take and prepare you for the hurdles on its way to conclusive results. Next slide, please. In the next slide, I have explained reasons to select a specific research methodology. What are the reasons? You should select a qualitative research methodology because what it uses an inductive and subjective approach. Furthermore, it adopts an open and flexible approach. Second, qualitative research builds theories. Third, word-based data can be collected via interviews and focus groups, and it draws on small sample sizes and uses qualitative data analysis techniques such as content analysis, thematic analysis, etc. And you should select a quantitative research methodology because it uses a deductive approach and objective approach. In addition, it adopts a close and highly planned approach. Then quantitative research tests theories. Then numeric data can be collected via surveys or laboratory instrumental experiments. And lastly, it draws on large sample sizes, and uses statistical data analysis techniques. And finally, next slide, please. Key takeaway: how do you summarize a research methodology? Step 1: explain your methodological approach. You can start by introducing your overall approach to your research. Step 2: describe your data collection methods. Step 3: describe your analysis method. Step 4: evaluate and justify the methodological choices you made. While it may seem that the goal of the research is the primary reason to choose the best research methodology, it is essential to consider other factors that influence successful research completion. Remember that uh, the choice of the most appropriate method and its correct execution is what that drives your research. So the key takeaway is that you should always start with your research aims and objectives, and every methodology decisions will follow, or every methodology decision will flow from that. Next slide. With this, I conclude my presentation. I hope all will understand the concepts which I explain in PPTs and which I explain in between also. So once again, thank you to Global Professional Institutes for giving me opportunity to conduct this very important research methodology lecture in much more in detailed manner. I hope all the researchers, students, entrepreneurs, educators will watch this episode, and they will be. I'm sure they will be benefited by this knowledge or information which I share. So thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your rich content presentation, which can impact our knowledge seeker surely. After your presentation, I hope our knowledge seeker can learn something new, which was our only intention. Learn and grow together, IGP knowledge seeker. Once again, thank you so much, dear sir, for your presentation. Now, sir, it's time for our question answer session, which is the one more valuable part of our regular webinar. Honorable sir, please stay with us. After a short video. We will be back in our session part 2, which is the question answer part. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. So I think after a wonderful presentation, our participant can understand the topic very clearly. That's why no questions from our participants. So once again, thank you so much, sir, for your time in
Thank you.
IGP. We have learned a lot from you with new topic. It will add some value to our day-to-day activity along with our academic and professional growth. Honorable sir, hope to see you again with a new topic and a new date. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you.
Honorable sir, before we move to the next webinar certification process, if you want to leave this studio, you can, sir. IGP Knowledge Seeker is time for the webinar certification process, the most effective and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. IGP Knowledge Seeker is time for the webinar certification process, the most effective and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. Today, our some technical problem. We cannot provide our certificate code. We provide our certificate code in a short time. Thank you. Today, our some technical problem. We cannot provide our certificate code. We provide our certificate code in a short time. Thank you. Dear IGP Knowledge Seeker, it's time for the most challenging part of this webinar, which is an online quiz competition, which is our regular webinar activity. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. Go to www.slido.com and find today's quiz or scan this QR code for direct joining. Quiz code is Global IGP. After a short video, we will start our quiz session. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is Global IGP. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is Global IGP. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is Global IGP. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is Global IGP. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is Global IGP. With 18 people, we are going to start our quiz session right now. Our first question is, Wilhelm Wundt used a research methodology called option 1, introspection, option 2, structuralization. Option 2 is the right answer, and 50% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Chile is holding the first position. Our second question is secondary qualitative research methodology to study of published research in subject area. Option 1 case study, option 2 literature review. Option 2 is the right answer, and 29% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Chile is holding the first position. Our third question is the research methodology Wilhelm used is called option 1 introspection, option 2 is structuralism. Option 1 is the right answer, and 31% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Asadawat is holding the first position. Our fourth question is what is the second step in research methodology? Option 1 from a hypothesis, option 2 review the literature. Option 2 is the right answer. 71% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Asadawat is holding the first position. Our fifth question is in a research paper, what's the principal reason for including details on research methodology? Option 1 readers can interrupt the result of the research. Option 2 allow readers to evaluate the validity of the research. Option 2 is the right answer. 73% people are right here. The reboot clearly is holding the first position. Our sixth question is in research paper, what is main reason for including a section that details research methodology? Option 1 readers can interrupt the result of the research. Option 2 allow readers to evaluate validity of research methodology. Option 2 is the right answer, and 82% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Kili is holding the first position. Our seventh question is what is the final stage of the research methodology? Option 1 define the problem. Option 2 presenting a conclusion. Option 2 is the right answer, and 94% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Chile is holding the first position. Our fourth question is research method equal to research methodology. Option 1 true, option 2 false. Option 2 is the right answer, and 48% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Perlian is holding the first position. Our ninth question is what introduced which research methodology? Option 1 functionalism, option 2 introspection. Option 2 is the right answer. 68% people are right here in the leaderboard. Our last and final question of the morning session is healthcare research utilize which research methodology? Option 1 quantitative method, option 2 potential, any of the above. Option 2 is the right answer and 26% people are right here. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. Slide will take a few minutes for finalizing the result and after that we will issue our online quiz competence certificate on our official Facebook page and group in Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations. Slide will take a few minutes for finalizing the result and after that we will issue our online quiz competence certificate on our official Facebook page and group in Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. Slider will take a few minutes for finalizing the result and after that we will issue our online quiz competence certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. At the end of our session, we can say properly feed your skill, never stop learning because life never stops teaching us. Be happy and stay safe. See you again and again. We want your participation in every program. If you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or things. Albert Einstein. Before I say or hit the end like button, again wants to thank all Ajip knowledge seekers for your active participation as always. See you again in the next session. Thank you.